Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. My name's Lorcan Doherty and today we're talking about wild boar. Catalonia has a pig problem. Numbers of scrofa, the Eurasian wild pig, have shot up here in recent years. And with that, so too has the potential for conflict between them and us. Trash cans raided, crops destroyed, celebrities attacked. Can anything be done to bring the situation under control? Coming up in today's podcast, we'll hear various views on that from a biologist, a farmer and an environmental official. And I'm joined today by Cristina Tomàs and Guifré Jordan. Hello to you both.
Yeah, hi Lorcan.
Cristina has also been out hunting for boars this week. Not actually hunting, but out boar spotting this week. And talking to residents affected as well. So we'll hear how you got on very shortly. Mm-hmm. People living here, I think, are more than aware of this issue, but Barcelona's boars actually became, I'd say, pretty famous internationally during the pandemic because we saw a whole load of viral videos of boars wandering around empty Barcelona streets.
Yeah, actually, there's like a very famous avenue crossing the whole of Barcelona called Diagonal. And, in the upper part of Diagonal, they used to like walk and, as if it were like the middle of a forest.
Everyone was in lockdown. There was all the curfews. Mm-hmm. And it was just a bit surreal to see.
The pigs were out. We were inside, but they were out.
It's always like very busy areas with cars and so on. And you could see like but loads of boars there. So,
and of course, Barcelona is, for people that don't know, is obviously situated right beside the Collserola mountain range, which is just behind. So obviously that's their kind of natural habitat, and they just kind of eventually wandered down right into the city. I mentioned celebrities there at the start. Shakira made headlines.
She did. It was in the BBC, The Guardian, all over US press.
She was attacked.
Yeah, well, her bag was attacked because I guess she had food in it. But this is something that happens pretty often. Here, It just made headlines because it was Shakira.
She did an Instagram story.
And maybe because in other countries, encounters with wild boars are not that often occurring. But in here, it's not that strange if you go out and about, maybe not, in the middle of the city, but in areas closer to Collserola mountain range, for instance, or in the Girona area, it's quite typical.
If you haven't, come across a wild boar in the street, or if you haven't seen any of these viral videos, they're not like domestic pigs. They have hair. The little piglets have light and dark stripes, which eventually turns reddish and then darker brown when they're about 10 to 12 months. Both sexes have prominent tusks that you can see.
Yeah, clearly.
And they grow larger, quite large in males.
Look like a pig, but
with tusks, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And hairy.
I never noticed the tusks, to be honest.
Well, yeah, watch out for them. In Catalonia at the beginning of the 20th century, the wild boar was actually very close to extinction. But now the situation is very much different. Kind of throughout the 20th century, it started to grow their numbers, and now in the last 10, 20 years, it's just exploded.
Yeah, actually, now there are approximately 200,000 wild boars, up to 230,000. Actually, it's one of the latest estimations. And only 10 years ago, there were only 100,000, so half of them. Yeah. So in just a decade, we've doubled the number of wild boars. So now the problem is double.
and they're present apparently in 93% of Catalonia. So, but as we said there earlier, kind of concentrated around Girona and just outside Barcelona here as well. And Cristina, this explosion in numbers has led to some serious issues.
Right. So many farmers, especially like in the Lleida area near Girona, and even close to Barcelona as well, they complain that they are harming their crops. They eat all sorts of crops. They do especially like corn. They've been the cause of a number of car crashes, accidents. They've also been found to carry African swine fever, not in Catalonia, but there have been outbreaks in northern Italy and Belgium. So that's something that authorities are keeping an eye out for. Mm-hmm.
And actually, only last year, there were 3,000 accidents, car crashes related to wild boars. So that's 10 per day, almost 10 per day. It's incredible, isn't it?
Well, actually, someone who was involved in a car crash, Aloy, got in touch with us and told us what happened to him.
So we had the accident last August. It was a clear day, shortly before sunset. We had just left La Pobla de Claramunt towards Igualada, and we were driving our car along a regional road We had a hill on the right side of the road and a downward slope on the left. As we were driving, something that struck our attention was that there was no protective barrier to prevent rock falls from the hill. But obviously, what we did not expect was that a black object would come off the hill and land exactly in front of our eyes. It was not a rock, but a wild boar, and it looked like the animal had slipped. We had almost no time to react, and we crashed into it before we were able to stop the car. The impact destroyed the front of the vehicle, but surprisingly, the animal was unharmed. We knocked it to the ground and left him concussed for a few seconds, but then it got up and immediately ran down the slope. No traces of blood on the front of our car, just mud and hair. So as you can imagine, it was very difficult for us to later explain to the Catalan police what happened because the animal had completely vanished.
Oh, that doesn't sound good at all. Poor Aloy and the poor boar too. All sorts of chaos, really, they're causing, Cristina.
Yeah, they get into the trash sometimes. A number of people have been bit by them. They like to dig up gardens. Recently, they destroyed a motorcycle because it had a melon in the seat. So,
Really?
Well, but basically, one of the things
That's
about
insane.
them is they eat anything. I think in they're omnivorous, they are opportunistic. So
very resourceful
very
animals.
resourceful.
And they adapt quickly to any, ecosystem.
Yeah, pretty much any habitat. We've mentioned a couple of times Collserola, the hills just here beside Barcelona. And earlier this week, Cristina went to Les Planes to speak to the residents there.
Barcelona might be a densely populated, bustling city, but you don't have to go far to find nature. Hop on a train from Plaça Catalunya in the city centre, and in under 20 minutes, you're already in the mountains. This place is prime wild boar stomping ground.
It's hard to believe that Les Planes is still part of Barcelona, is actually part of Barcelona because it feels so remote. I'm on the side of a road and it feels like it's the middle of nowhere, but just out here on the mountain, very few people. The kind of place where if you walk by someone, they'll say hi, which doesn't happen when you're below the mountain in the city.
Me and Maxime, my trusty assistant/intern, are on a mission to find wild boars. And, of course, to talk to the people who live in the neighborhood to see what they have to say about them.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Sveta.
The first person we run into is Sveta, who I find waiting for the bus.
Yeah, I actually see them quite often. I've seen several babies, and moms, and yeah.
She tells me she doesn't mind them and definitely doesn't think they should be hunted, even though they once tried to steal her bag. Her very own Shakira moment, I think to myself.
No, I was just sitting at the bus stop, waiting for the bus, and so a young boy came and tried, to grab my bag, but yeah, he didn't succeed. He just, covered me in dirt and the bag in dirt. That was it.
I try to talk to a few other people waiting at the stop, but only Manuel, a bus driver on his break, wants to talk to me.
Cuando nos toca estas líneas.
He doesn't live in the area, he says, but he tells me it's normal to run into boars when he has to work the route he's doing today. He says he's seen their numbers grow in the past few years and that he has to stop to avoid hitting them. They're not scared of his bus anymore.
No, que va. Se asusta la gente de ellos. Que salen corriendo.
After a few unsuccessful attempts to talk to the only 3 other people at the stop, we hop onto the bus that's about to leave. It's either that or a 30-minute hike to where we're supposed to meet the next interviewee. And as we wait for Jesus from the local neighborhood association beside the community center, not far from the abandoned tuberculosis sanitarium, we try to chat with a handful of people who walk by.
Jo vaig néixer a Vallvidrera, i era el forner al barri.
Jaume Badia, a 61-year-old Vallvidrera native and retired neighborhood baker, tells me there didn't used to be as many boars. He used to deliver in the area we're in, and he says he'd never used to see them here. If you saw a boar, you'd throw a party, he exclaims.
Si veies un, feies una festa.
Paola, an Italian woman who's lived in the area for the past 5 years, tells me how she was bit by a boar while taking out the trash.
Sacando la basura andando, también me han mordido.
Her daughter is now terrified of them, she says, and they have to drive to the closest trash cans. But when I ask her what she thinks about those who say they should be hunted, she's appalled. They were here first. We've invaded their habitat.
Venido aquí cuando ellos ya estaban.
By the time we talk to Jesus, who arrives with his faithful dog Nino in tow, I begin to pick up on a theme. While Las Planas residents are possibly more likely to run into boars on a daily basis than most other people, very few seem to think that hunting them is a good idea.
L'associació estem més per al tema d'esterilització, no pas per les caceres, no?
Jesus confirms this hunch when he tells me the neighborhood association is in favor of sterilizing them, even though they know it's more complicated and costly, despite their growing population and the growing number of run-ins with them. If there are that many boars, it's our own fault for letting Vietnamese pot-bellied pigs they've bred with loose in Collserola, or for feeding them like pets when we see them in nature.
I no són mascotes, són animals salvatges que els estem domesticant.
When we leave, he tells us to get our cameras ready. It's starting to get dark, so now is ideal boar sighting time. Haven't seen too many boars yet. I've seen a couple. One of them stared right at us, which is a bit unpleasant, but then he hurried away. I'm a bit disappointed by the time we make it back to the Las Planas train station after, of course, a 30-minute trek back because the buses don't run that often. By the end of our adventure, I think I've only seen 3 boars.
Only 3? I would be incredibly excited if I saw 3 boars. No, it's like you've seen it all before.
I mean, I've seen more on other occasions, so I was hoping to see more since they've been in the news so much.
Well,
there wasn't all that much going on.
Thanks very much to Jesus from the Residents Association there and everyone else who did speak to you. I mean, I would be incredibly excited to see boars and also a little bit scared. You know, I've come across boars, you know, a few times, but yeah, I mean, I think maybe I've seen 3 in total, like since I've lived here. What about you, Guifré?
Like you've only seen 3, like single boars.
3.
Because
like,
every time I've seen boars, they go in families. You know, the mum, like a big one, and then 3 or 4 piglets.
Oh, I'd love to see a few piglets.
They're lovely.
They're really cute.
Yeah,
really cute.
Too cute.
I did see a little small one. The first one I saw, I remember, was up in Catalonia, but it was a tiny little thing, you know, but it was on its own, definitely. And then I've seen some big ones too. Well, one big one in particular, I presume it was male just from the size of it, just basically strolling up and down the street outside my bedroom. I now live quite close to Collserola, and being tailed by a police car behind who was just kind of like following up and down, like, so it's like,
wow, that's.
But I would not like to run into something like that on my own at night. Obviously, they come out at night, as you said.
But some people are so used to it. I mean, I've got a friend who lives in La Floresta, which is next to where Cristina was the other day, Las Planas. She always tells me, I can see wild boars from my home every day, you know.
It's like seeing a dog or a cat in the street.
Yeah, nothing special at all.
Okay, so their numbers are going up. We've said that, but why? Well, it's a question we've been looking into this week.
Right. I mean, there's so many different factors that we could discuss. Just even this summer, there was a drought, so it was drier than usual, so they didn't have as much food. So they're a bit more adventurous than they would have been other years, going out and to find in the trash.
Searching for water, basically.
They no longer have any natural predators because the wolves that used to eat them are extinct.
Okay. I mean, they've been reintroduced, but in pretty insignificant
negligible numbers of wolves in Catalonia.
And another reason is that Vietnamese pot-bellied pigs suddenly became fashionable. Yeah, they were famous because of a TV series called Plats Bruts, and then everyone wanted to have a Vietnamese pig as pet.
As a little pet.
Yeah, that's. But then they grow, and what people do is to leave them to the wild, thinking they are doing something good, you know.
Or they're just abandoning them.
But they're abandoning them. And the problem is like they bred with wild boars, which makes the population of this species even bigger. So this is creating an imbalance in that habitat. And this has happened on massive numbers.
Okay. That's just a few reasons. To find out more, we spoke to Jaume Badia, a biologist from the University of Barcelona, Ramon Comes from a farmers' union, and Anna Sanitjas, a Catalan government environmental official.
There are at least 200,000 wild boars in Catalonia, more than twice as many as there were a decade ago, despite hunting campaigns that kill an average of 70,000 per year. But Anna Sanitjas, the head of forest ecosystems and environmental management for the Catalan government, estimates there could actually be up to 230,000.
The population in Catalonia has increased over the last decades.
One of the main reasons for this exponential growth has to do with farming. Jaume Badia, a PhD researcher at the University of Barcelona, told me.
There's many factors that have contributed to this increase of the population. Probably the most relevant one has been the expansion of the aggregated land in the last decades. So Catalonia is basically a Mediterranean country. So it's a dry country overall. Traditionally, the most expanded and the most widespread land were basically this kind of dry farming typical from our area, right? And in the last decades, irrigated land has expanded quite a lot because it's more productive.
Not only is this method of farming more water intensive, something Badia thinks will likely be unfeasible in the future due to climate change, but it also attracts more boars, especially when it comes to crops like corn or barley.
And because it's more productive, at the same time, this is like a double-edged sword, right? Because the farmer gets more production, gets more money, but at the same time, the wild boars get more food.
Ramon Comes, a farmer from Corbins, a small western Catalonia town, can attest to this.
Clar, mengen del nostre, del que és el nostre jornal, el que nosaltres ens guanyem la vida.
They eat what we make a living off of, he laments. And since they make little profit, it isn't something that goes unnoticed.
Doncs perquè aquest senglar ha tingut la capacitat d'adaptar-se, la capacitat...
These creatures have been able to adapt to ever-changing environments both near urban areas and in the country, Sanitjas explains, adding that their penchant for farmers' crops has caused the population to explode.
Si va sobrealimentada, si està alimentada amb blat de moro...
And while before it was common for there to be only 2 to 3 piglets per litter, boars who feed on corn can have up to 5. Litters are even bigger among those that have bred with the Vietnamese pot-bellied pigs, with up to 8 piglets. More boars, of course, means more crop damage, accidents, and run-ins. It's only natural that this phenomenon has people scratching heads about how to handle the situation.
Okay, our thanks again to Jaume, Ramon and Anna, and to you as well, Cristina. Now, we've heard what the problem is and some of the issues and the reasons behind it, but what can be done about it? Well, that was actually the subject of an international symposium that took place here just a couple of months ago. The 13th International Symposium on Wild Boar and Other Suds. You've learned a new word today, like me. It took place in Montseny in September. It just shows that it's such a serious business. You know, academics from all over Europe discussing the economic impact and, of course, the scientific and biological interest as well. But, yeah, they made a 12-point call to action. And essentially what they want is for the governments to make action plans. We're going to hear about the Catalan government's one in a minute. That control the population growth and assess whether that can be done through hunting, or also whether they need to develop and test other approaches and complementary methods. And they say more research is urgently needed. Guifré, I just mentioned that the Catalan government do have an action plan. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, first of all, no surprise that this symposium took place in Montseny, because it's one of the areas in Catalonia and maybe beyond Catalonia where we have more wild boars.
And Montseny is obviously this beautiful, like heavily forested area as well. So obviously that's where naturally the wild boar like to hang out before they come into the towns and fields and things.
Huge one in the heart of Catalonia, in central Catalonia, yeah. So, yeah, the Catalan government is tackling this issue with this action plan, 3-year action plan funded with 11 million euro. And one of the aims of this plan, obviously, is to reduce the number of wild boars by helping safe hunting. That's what they say. Because obviously they argue that one of the easiest and most effective ways to end with this overpopulation is to hunt more wild boars.
Yeah, we already mentioned they don't have any natural predators, so this is one way to keep the population under control.
Exactly. So around 70,000 wild boars are hunted per year, but the administration wants to further promote it, and they will create, according to this action plan, a concept of expert hunter, which will be someone who will go in hunts with the others, and they will be connected directly with the administration to control the population. They will be trained specifically to control the population of wild boars. Another thing related to that is to promote turning wild boars into food for butchers and restaurants. We cannot really find wild boars here as food,
on the menu,
and they want to do it in order to encourage hunters to further hunt wild boars so that they will get extra money, obviously. Another thing will be to declare the hunting emergency. That's something that will happen in early 2023. That
sounds pretty dramatic.
Yes. Yeah. It's like just for some specific areas where the problem is massive, and this will give extra tools to the administration to work on that. And that's something Anna Sanitjas confirmed to us earlier this week. So yeah, this is part of this action plan that will also include like helping farmers, tackling urban areas that where there are loads of damages because of that. So,
and what about sterilization? That's obviously another alternative or complementary method that's touted.
Yeah, that's not in the current action plan because the government argues that still 4 to 6 years are needed to further do some research on a vaccine that would sterilize them. And Anna Sanitjas also told us that you have to do this for every animal, which is difficult if you have 200,000, obviously.
And costly too.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
It might be more costly, but there have been calls like from environmental groups, from the Barcelona Bar Association for more humane measures to control the population.
And as we heard the residents you talked to earlier, Cristina, they were very much in favour
even
of
the
sterilisation.
person who had been bit by a boar was telling me, no, we shouldn't be killing them. But actually, the Autonomous University of Barcelona has been working on developing a vaccine to sterilize them, which they believe to be very effective. They just haven't been able to test it in a large area yet.
Okay, those are kind of like the big picture ideas, but then there's like smaller things you can do, like if you put your rubbish out, make sure the bags are properly tied up. And,
right. They'll probably get into the bags anyway.
Well, okay, make sure the lid is properly closed.
Right,
I don't know, but they're actually
councils
councils are actually making
and don't feed them.
That's
like rule
clear.
number one.
Don't feed pigeons too. I know there's nothing to do with this podcast, but
that's just a personal public announcement from Guifré.
As someone who lives near Plaza Catalonia, please stop feeding the pigeons.
Stop feeding the pigeons. Don't feed the boars. Don't feed the pigeons. So what do you do if you see one? I checked this because after my encounters, I was like, okay, next time I want to be prepared.
They're cute. Why are you so scared?
I don't know. They're pretty. Nice. I saw a pretty big one.
Yeah, I find them kind of scary.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I'm not the only one. And when I started to read, they say don't run. Boars can run faster than humans, so there you go. We've got good reason to be scared. Back away slowly, facing them. But try not to make eye contact too. So
too many things.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if they charge at you, you have to get up somewhere, like run up a tree, get on top of a bin, get yourself.
I'm thinking
up.
like Pamplona, but in Cristola.
Exactly, the boar run.
But I will say, in their defense, they're generally very peaceful. Like they usually don't bother you unless you have food in your hand.
Yeah. Okay.
They're very cute.
They're probably more scared of me than I am of them. That's what I'll tell myself.
They're probably not scared of you, but you can tell yourself that.
Time now for our Catalan phrase. What's it this week, Cristina?
Fer més mal que un porc solt.
Fer més mal que un porc solt. To do worse than a loose pig?
Yeah,
is that right?
To do more damage than a loose pig.
To do more damage than a loose pig, okay.
Yeah, so something that causes a lot of damage.
Chaos,
yeah. Something they say in the Valencia area.
This is, okay, very nice, right. Fer més mal que un porc solt. And I have to say, I love the word pork as pig as well, just, as an aside. And that's us for today. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do subscribe, tell your friends, your family, randomers in the street. Big thanks to everyone who spoke to us this week, and multas gracias to the two of you, Cristina and Guifré.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
We're back again next Saturday with another episode of Filling the Sink. Until then, from me, Lorcan Doherty, and all of us here at Catalan News, bye for now. Adeu.